Welcome to the Jackson Harris podcast. I am Jackson Harris, your host, and I love to introduce my guest right here on the show. Dr. Douglas Young is an author and the University of North Georgia political science professor. Those essays, poems, and short stories have appeared in various publications in America, Canada, Europe, and Asia. His first novel, Deep in the Forest, was published in 2021, and the second, Due South, came in 2022. His first book of essays, A Little Option Opinions plus $1.50 Will Buy You a Coke, appeared in 2024. And the second, Not Just Political, was published in 2025. His first book of short stories, The Double Date, and Other Stories, appeared in 2026. Welcome, Douglas Young, to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me, Jackson. It is an honor and a delight to be here. I've been blessed to be a guest on your podcast, I think at least two or three times before. And I am just so very impressed with you, with the fact that you started your own podcast at 15 and you're still doing it 6 years later. Most people never do that, and especially not as someone in their mid-teens. So I mean, you really have a talent and a drive, and it's commendable. And you're a kind gentleman, and I just really applaud you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so tell everybody about a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I was born in Bartow, Florida in 1961. That's a little town in Central Florida. And at age 4.5, my family moved to Athens, Georgia, because my father became a graduate student at the university. And after he got his doctorate, he was hired as a professor there. And so we ended up living in Athens the rest of my childhood and early adulthood. And so Athens is really my hometown. And I love growing up there as a faculty brat. Athens offers so many wonderful cultural amenities of big cities, like plays and concerts and guest speakers, but yet it doesn't have all the crime and pollution and traffic congestion of an Atlanta. And then I went to the University of Georgia myself, and I got my degrees in political science, and I started teaching first as a teaching assistant at the university, and then I got my first full-time job as a political science and history professor at Gordon College in Barnesville, Georgia, south of Atlanta. I taught there from 1987 to 1999. And then in 1999, I got an even better job at what was then Gainesville State College in Gainesville, Georgia. And I taught there from June of 1999 through December of 2020. It became the Gainesville campus of the new University of North Georgia in January of 2013. And I loved it. I taught political science and history, mostly political science. I also sponsored a couple of student clubs that were blessed to win a lot of awards. The Politically Incorrect Club, which was nonpartisan, welcomed everybody, and the Chess Club. And while I had written lots of essays for newspapers and magazines ever since I was about 23, I had, ever since I was in high school, I had nurtured a dream of writing fiction one day, of being a novelist, writing literature. But I never had the guts to do it, Jackson, until in the summer of 2017, while I was still teaching on the Gainesville campus, I realized, I'm closer to 60 now that I am 50. And if I'm ever going to hope to fulfill this dream of becoming a literary author, now is the time to shift things into fifth gear. And so that summer of 2017, I wrote the first draft of my first novel, Deep in the Forest. And I put it away for a while. I still taught. And then in 2020, I decided, I've been teaching for over a third of the century, and I could probably do this to the day I died. But I've been very blessed. I've been fortunate enough to do everything I ever wanted to do as a professor and a lot more. I really ought to retire from the professoriate so that I can write full time. And so I did that. And I was really blessed that my first novel was published in 2021 and was very well received. And so I wrote my second novel, Due South, which came out in 2022, and it was very well received. And then after that, I decided that I would take all the well over 100 essays that I had been fortunate enough to get published going back to the mid 1980s, and I would put them together in a couple of books. The first book, This Little Opinion plus $1.50 Will Buy You a Coke, is a collection of 60 some odd essays about political issues, covering a wide variety of political topics in modern American political history from the mid 1980s to the present day. And it came out in 2024. And then I decided in 2025, last year, to put out a second book of essays called Not Just Political. And it consisted of close to 60 essays that were mostly not dealing with politics, but with a lot more personal things about myself, family, travels, reviews of books, movies, concerts, records, that kind of thing. And it was a lot of fun. But over the last few years, I had started writing fiction again, but not in the form of novels, but short stories. And so I thought, gee, I really ought to put out some books of short stories. And so my brand new book, which was just published this past month, The Double Date and Other Stories, has 15 short stories that I've been fortunate enough to get published in a variety of literary magazines throughout America and in Canada, Europe and Asia in recent years. And they're a lot of fun. They're light reading. They all take place in the present day. All but one of the 15 stories in the new book takes place in the small town American South. A majority of them are comedies, but there's also drama. Most of them are what I would call dramedies or comedy dramas. They have a mixture of comedy and drama, but there are many other genres that are explored, and most of the stories will incorporate a multiplicity of genres: comedy, drama, family dynamics, romance, mystery, but not a murder mystery. And there are some serious issues dealt with: the dangers of drug abuse, facing the death of an elderly relative, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's light, fun reading, really ideal summer reading, for beach reading. And there's quite a wide variety of topics covered: UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it. And the one story in the book that does not take place in Dixie, takes place in China. And it's heavily based on the time that I almost got arrested in China. and all these stories are inspired by either real life events that happened in my own life or the lives of people I know, or sometimes someone might say something that might give me an idea, or I might see something or read about something that sparks an idea for a story. And they were so much fun to write. And the comedies had me laughing out loud, and they've been very well received by folks who have read these stories when I've posted them on my Facebook page when they've been published by various literary magazines. And so I'm very excited about the new book coming out. And I'm continuing to write short stories. I've got another 17 short stories ready for my next book, which will be another collection of short stories. And I hope to get that book published sometime next year. And in the meantime, I'm really enjoying doing a lot of guest speaking on various political and mostly historical topics to various groups around the state and in South Carolina, also North Carolina. I've also really enjoyed being interviewed about a number of literary and political and historical and cultural topics like we're doing right now. And so I've really enjoyed my retirement over the last 5.5 years, my retirement from teaching, but I certainly don't consider myself remotely retired. I'm still staying quite busy, just doing a lot of other things, and it's worked out very well. And I've enjoyed doing many guest lectures to various classes. I've talked about my travels to China. I've also lectured on writing and literature, and so it's been a good time.
Okay, so let me see. What was the main message and the theme of the book?
Let's see. I think there are many themes of the new book. Because 14 of the 15 stories take place in the present day American South, there are obviously many Southern themes. Most of the characters have what I consider to be beautiful Southern accents. Because most of the stories have a lot of humor, comedy is clearly a major theme of the bulk of these stories. But I would say that whether the stories are humorous, whether they're funny or dramatic or a combination of them, they all are driven by hopefully really compelling, complex characters. These are character-driven tales. And one of the great challenges of writing a short story is you don't have time to go into tremendous detail about any character or any aspect of the story. You have to convey a lot with a minimum of words. And so writing short stories is quite a challenge. I love it, but you have to be able to sort of say a lot with a little, so to speak. And you have to be a really savvy editor to get rid of all fat and gristle and just have the meat and potatoes there. And so, and it's also interesting, a number of the stories are only 1,000 words because now so many literary publications want stories to be no more than 1,000 words. And so my first draft may be 1,500 words, but I've got to really narrow it down. And so that tightens it. That gets rid of all the unnecessary verbiage, unnecessary, unneeded phrases, etc. So I think that all of these stories cut right to the quick. They, cut right to the chase. Now, most of the stories are a lot longer than 1,000 words. Some of them are as long as 6,000 or 7,000 words. So there's a wide variety of different lengths of stories. But I think all the stories are really about fascinating people, and they show how everybody goes through various struggles. And as different as we all are, we all have a lot of common interests or drives. And as I said earlier, this is light reading. I mean, there's some serious themes that are dealt with, but these stories are really fun. They've all got happy endings. Now they're not, they're not Disney-fied. I mean, they're realistic, and that's something that I require of everything I write, whether it's a novel or a short story or whatever. These are stories that are, I think, firmly grounded in reality. There's one fantasy story in here that was a lot of fun, in which I had a lot of alliteration and rhyming, and I was wanting to sort of pay homage to some of my favorite fantasy writers, like L. Frank Baum, the author of the Wizard of Oz stories, and some of Aldous Huxley's work and some of C.S. Lewis's work. But almost all these stories are really realistic, but they emphasize the humor in life, the lighter side of life. And I hope that a number of these stories are inspiring, because there are some serious challenges or problems that a number of these characters in these stories face. And they ultimately summon the courage to face these challenges, to jump over these hurdles, to not hide from them or let them defeat them. And so I hope that that's inspiring. So that's a long answer, but it was a great question, and no one has asked me that yet. But I would just say that there are many themes to these stories, and I really think that readers can find a lot with which they can identify.
Okay, so what was the hardest part about writing the book?
The hardest part? It's another good question, and no one's asked me that before too. Thank you. Let's see. Because I enjoy writing fiction so much. Now, I enjoy writing nonfiction too. I love writing essays and poems. But fiction is even more fun, because with the exceptions of making sure that you're writing grammatically correct sentences with correct punctuation, the beauty of writing fiction is there are no rules. I mean, you can create your own universe. You're like your own god. So I guess maybe the biggest challenge would be editing. When I write the first draft of a story, it usually just flows out. I mean, I'm writing, my fingers can't keep pace with the thoughts in my head, and so I'm writing as fast as I can. And that first draft is really exhilarating. I mean, it's so exciting. But then comes the really hard part. Now, no part is easy, but it's also enjoyable. Time flies, and I don't think of it being hard. But for me, my writing process is such that first draft is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the work goes. 90 to 95% of the work and the time and effort that goes into writing any story for me involves the editing, because that first draft, it's like a diamond in the rough, but it needs to be refined. And so what I'll do is I'll take that first draft and I will just read over it and edit it again and again and again and again. I will read through it dozens of times, taking out all the excess words, unnecessary verbiage, getting rid of this unneeded sentence, that unnecessary phrase, combining these two paragraphs, chopping off all the fat, all the gristle, all the waste, so that all that's left is what's essential. And the finished version is always even though it's significantly shorter than the first draft, it is always so much better than that first draft, because it is streamlined, it flows much better. So I would say the hardest part of writing for me is the editing. But that too is really fun, because with each round of edits, I see that diamond in the rough from the first draft getting shinier and shinier, taking more shape. I'm getting more and more confidence that, hey, I think this story is pretty good. I think it'll work out. And so I enjoy every aspect of the process. I really do. The editing is frankly not nearly as exhausting. It's neither as exciting nor as draining as that first draft. It's harder because I'm going over every aspect of the story with a fine tooth comb, so to speak. But it's super satisfying to see the story get better and better, take more and more shape. So, but I would say probably the most demanding and at times the most tedious part of the writing process for me would be editing. But it's critical. It's the most important.
And did your story change a lot from your original idea of this?
Let's see. Basically, no. I mean, generally, I know immediately if I've got an idea for a story that I'm actually going to follow through and write about. I just feel it. It will grab me and I'll know, oh, I've got to write a story about this. And what I'll do is I'll just think about it for a while. And I think pretty much without exception, each story I've written has been faithful to the original idea. I mean, obviously I make adjustments, but I'll write that first draft when the story is really hot and heavy on my shoulders. I want to unleash it. I want to share it with the world. And obviously during the editing process, to make things work, I mean, I'll adjust it here and there to get the mechanics right so that it's realistic. I'll add things to make it funnier if I'm trying to make a comedy. But in terms of the essential trajectory of the story, the basic points of it, I don't think I ever fundamentally changed a story's direction after the first draft. I think I just refined it.
And what does your writing routine look like?
That's a good question too. Sometimes I will consciously lay down or walk around trying to think of, what would be a good idea for a story. I keep a file with dialogue that has come into my head or names of characters that I'll draw upon once I develop an idea for a story. But I'll try to think of a story, but usually a story will just hit me. Someone will say something, I'll see something, I'll think about something, I'll remember something that's happened, and that'll like the spark of an idea for a new story. And once I know instantly, this is going to work, I'll then think some more about how to develop it. And once I have a pretty decent idea of the direction in which the story is going to take, I'll write the first draft, and it'll usually take me a couple of hours or so. And then I will start editing it. And like I said earlier, the editing process takes up 90 to 95% of the writing time. And for a short story, it will usually take about a week, sometimes more than a week to write it. If it's a super short story, like say 1,000-worder, I might could write that in a few days. But generally I can write a short story in about a week. I will spend several hours a day on it, but I don't want to spend 8 or 10 hours a day on it because I want to always be fresh. So I'll take a break, I'll sleep on it. And I never submit a story until after I have been able to reread the whole thing without making a single significant edit. Um, I used to have a rule that I followed in which I wouldn't submit any story or essay or poem to any publishers until I could read the whole thing without making a single edit. But as neurotic a perfectionist as I am, that's very hard to do. Sometimes after a week or so, I'm just exhausted with it. And I realize I think the story is as good as I can get it. I'm sure I can always make a few additional edits, change a word here, change a word there, but essentially I think it's fine. And at that point, so now my rule is if I can read through a whole story without making a significant edit, that's when I know it's time to start submitting it to publishers. And I'll submit my stories to various literary magazines around the world, and but I also keep a file of all of my stories so that I can publish them in book form once I get enough. And like I said, I've already got more than enough stories for my next book of short stories, which should come out next year. And I'm continuing to write short stories as well as essays. And I do hope to have another book of essays out probably in a few years.
Okay, let's get the question back up. What do you hope readers take away after finishing the book?
First of all, I hope that reading The Double Date and other stories is a really fun experience. I mean, I want to entertain people. I want the stories to be captivating, for the reader to be engrossed with these tales, to identify with the various characters, to find them amusing and interesting. I want the reader to laugh at all the funny stories. I want them to find the stories intriguing. I want them to be fun. I want people to have a good time. And as bonuses, if people can be inspired by these stories to summon the courage to face whatever fears they're dealing with, so much the better. And I think that these stories can hopefully compel people to try to find the lighter side of life. I think there's a lot more humor in this world, in this life, than most of us acknowledge. So I want, first and foremost, to entertain, but I really want these stories to draw the reader in, to captivate the reader, to allow the reader to escape life for several hours, to dive into this world, of this fictional world of the present day American South, and to enjoy themselves.
Okay, so what is one thing readers would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, that's a good question too. My guess is that most of the students I was blessed to teach for over a third of a century, they probably would be surprised that I love writing fiction and that I've been lucky enough to get novels and short stories and poems published. I doubt they would be too surprised that I'd gotten a lot of essays published and a couple of books of essays published, but they probably would not have expected me to write fiction. That would probably be something that would surprise most of them. But I'm really fortunate to be Facebook friends with loads of my former students, and I've been very blessed. They have supported, so many of them, my writings. They've enjoyed my books. Other things that might surprise people. I've been really fortunate to travel all over the world, especially since I retired from the professoriate at the end of 2020. my sweet Cheyenne and I just got back from Portugal several days ago, and that was a lot of fun. And we've really enjoyed touring Europe a few times. We've uh, always had a big time traveling in China, where her family live, and so I've enjoyed traveling around the world. But even when I was teaching, I mean, I would talk a lot about my travels, particularly when they were relevant to whatever political or historical topic was being addressed in the classroom. Um, so, but I think that I have enjoyed writing fiction so much. I think that might surprise a lot of people.
Okay, if your book became a movie, who would you want cast in it?
Another fine question. I tell you what, because there are 15 tales in this new book, um, it would depend on which story we're talking about. Um, I know with my first book, Deep in the Forest, uh, there is a sheriff in that book uh, that I when I was writing the story, I imagined the actor John Goodman playing the sheriff. Uh, I think he would do a good job. Now he's not a Southerner, but he's a Missourian, so I think he would do a good job of being. I think he could handle a Southern accent. Um, but I would love for filmmakers to make movies about my novels and short stories. Um, Often when I'm writing them, I think of them in cinematically, and I think that they would be ideal for films. Absolutely. And if you know any filmmaker who's looking for a short story or a novel to adapt for the big screen, please let me know.
What music or movies inspire your creativity?
That's interesting. When I write poetry, I like to have Bach or some of the classical music on. Now, I can't concentrate well if they're singing. You know, the words will interfere with my focus. But light classical music can really be soothing and help inspire me. Um, I know in a short story I've written that will be in my next book of short stories, um, a couple of characters write about one of their favorite recording artists, um, Nick Drake, who put out some beautiful albums between 1969 and 1972 that weren't big sellers, but influenced a lot of later artists. I'm trying to think if I make any references to other bands. Oh, the second story in my new book, The Double Date and Other Stories, is called I Think So. And it's based on the time that a dear friend and I in college went to Atlanta to see what was then the biggest band in the world in concert, The Police. They were very big in the early 1980s when we saw them at the old Omni in Atlanta, which is now where Phillips Arena is.
It's called
And
State Farm. It's called State Farm now, but yeah.
oh, okay, thank you. Well, in any event, I took an experience that we had in the Omni that night, and I wrote a story about it. And so the Police music is described a little bit, and some of the songs are mentioned. But basically, what happened, and this is typical of how I will write short stories. I don't want to give away too much, and this is clearly one of the funnier stories, I think. What happened, and this is what I'm about to tell you, is reality. When my buddy and I were at this Police concert, unfortunately, there was a couple a young couple seated directly in front of us. And even though nobody was standing in front of them, they proceeded to stand throughout the whole show. And we would ask them to please sit down, and they wouldn't sit down. And so, we were really ticked off about this, and the people behind us were ticked off too. Well, we got our revenge, because what happened was this couple bought a pair of very expensive Police concert jerseys that the guy left in his seat as he and his girlfriend were standing and dancing to the Police music. Well, totally unbeknownst to me, my buddy, and I'm not going to say his name to protect the guilty, during the second Police encore, when we knew the band was about to leave the stage and wouldn't come back, to my shock, as everybody's on his feet dancing and screaming, my buddy reaches down and grabs both of those super expensive $20 police jerseys. Now, a $20 jersey, concert jersey in 1983 was a lot more. I mean, man, today that would be like, I don't know, maybe a $50 jersey. Well, my buddy grabs both of those jerseys and he stuffs them under his shirt, grabs my arm, and we race out of the Omni. We're running for our life. We're so scared that, this couple is going to, come after us. The police are going to come after us. And so we raced to the car and we got away with it. Well, what I did was I took that one event and I enhanced it. I exaggerated things to make it a better story, and to make so that my buddy and I wouldn't look like real jerks, thieves. I recast the couple, the rude couple standing in front of us. I turned them into just redneck monsters, just drunk, rude, really obnoxious, super obnoxious people. So the reader wouldn't feel sorry for them. And then to heighten the tension, the drama, the excitement, when my buddy steals the jerseys, I have him stuff them under my jacket. So I'm even more scared. And we're racing out of the Omni. So anyway, and there's a lot more humor as well that I'll save for the reader to be able to enjoy. But that's an example of how I get an idea to write a story. I'll give you some other examples if you like.
Sure, you can.
Okay. One story, one of the funniest in the book, I think, is called Wild Weeds. And I kid you not, it is based on true fact. I mentioned earlier that I grew up in Athens, Georgia, in the 1960s and 70s, to be precise. And in the late 60s, early 70s, man, that was the hippie heyday. And Athens, with the University of Georgia, had loads of hippies. And my parents, they had an old friend from Florida who had moved to Athens around the same time that we did. Well, this friend of theirs, he got hippified, and he got him a young hippie chick, a girlfriend. And anyway, they invited my parents, who were very straight-laced, devout Christians. My parents, now hippified friend, invited them to a dinner party at his house. And so my parents, this was at about 1969 or 1970. So my parents go to his house. And oh my goodness, there are a bunch of hippies there. And on the wall, they've got posters of all these hippie heroes, Chairman Mao, Che Guevara, Ho Chi Minh, all these communist revolutionaries. And long story short, after dinner, my parents' buddy, Ernie, he invites them to go out into his backyard before it gets dark, because he wants to show them his beautiful garden. He's got a great big garden with all kinds of different plants. Well, My mother is a wonderful gardener, and they go out there, and my parents are very impressed with the garden, but my mother is horrified by these great big ugly weeds growing up in the middle of the garden. And she didn't recognize what they were. She just said, "Oh, Ernie, look at these ugly old weeds. Here, let me pull them up for you." And Ernie goes, "No, no, 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 no. Let all God's plants live. No, 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 don't pull up any of them." And Mom said, "Oh, but Ernie, these ugly weeds, they're going to choke up the nutrients. They're going to harm the tomato plants and the other plants." And Ernie goes, "No, no, no. Let all the plants, let all the plants from this garden get along very well. Leave them alone, Joy. Leave them alone." And so she goes, "Okay." Well, I kid you not, 1 week later, when my parents opened up and looked at the front page of that morning's Athens Banana Herald Daily Snooze, the Athens Banana Herald Daily News, the leading newspaper in Northeast Georgia, what was the lead headline above the fold in huge font? "Biggest pot bust in Clark County history." That's right. My parents' buddy was busted for growing marijuana in his backyard. Yes. And if he had just let my sweet Christian mama pull up his marijuana plants, he'd have never been busted. And that's a true story. And so when I remember that, I thought, oh, this is just screaming to be turned into a short story. And so that's what I did. And, those are the essential facts, but I added so much more to try to enhance the humor, to make the characters more interesting. But also making it realistic. That's another example of how one event from either my life or a friend's life or family members' lives can light the spark for a short story.
Okay. So what kind of readers would enjoy this book the most?
I would say, first of all, anybody who enjoyed my first novel, Deep in the Forest, and anybody who enjoyed my second novel, Due South, would really like this book. Everybody who has found the short stories that I've posted on my Facebook page, everyone who's found those stories to be fun reads, I think would definitely like this new book a lot. As I said earlier, this is what I would consider to be light literature. There are some sad moments, but there's nothing depressing. All these stories, even the most dramatic, have a happy ending. I think they're inspiring, but I think they're realistic. I mean, they're not Disney-fied Hallmark Channel type stuff. They are, I think, compelling. And because the subject matter is so widely varied, I mean, I write about concerts, family dynamics. One story is called Looking for Bigfoot. That's got some mystery. He thinks that he may have had an encounter with Bigfoot, and he's investigating that. Another story is called Chasing UFOs, which is also somewhat humorous, but it has an element of mystery to it about UFOs. I've also got fantasy. There's one story that is just a really enjoyable fantasy tale. There's a story, I think the most touching story in the book, maybe the most touching story I've yet written. It's called Aunt Lalena, and it's based on a real life experience I had a long time ago when an aunt of mine was dying, and my father and I went to visit her. And this story describes the experiences I wish it had happened. When I saw my aunt in real life, I was too shy to hold her hand, to tell her I loved her. And so in this new story, I recreate the event but as I wish it had ideally unfolded. And there is a very positive attitude toward religion, specifically Christianity, in several of the stories in this book. But the book is never the least bit preachy. I think especially, I think the book that I've written that is by far the closest in tone to the new book would be my first book, my first novel, Deep in the Forest. Almost all of the new book's short stories are rated G. And so, this is a book for the whole family, but yet it's not G-rated pap. I mean, I know I'm biased, but all of these tales were designed to be as realistic as possible and to have some inspiration, as well as a lot of humor and interpersonal dynamics between family members, romantic partners, friends. So I think that these stories are, for the most part, pretty accurate slices of life, just emphasizing the humor more. And that's, I think, part of the job of a short story. A short story should focus on what's really important. What are the really most significant aspects of some particular event or phenomenon or development or aspect of somebody or some group of people's lives, so that nothing is wasted. And so the last thing in the world I think anybody will feel reading this book is boredom. There's no page is wasted. And that's another difference between short stories and novels. While there shouldn't be any pablum, there shouldn't be any wasted words in a novel either, I think realistically, there probably are more wasted words, unnecessary words in a novel, because you have a lot bigger canvas on which to paint your tale. With a short story, no, you've got to cut right to the quick. You don't have 30, 40, 50 pages to work with. You have to make your characters really compelling, desirable, attractive, or if you want to create a villainous character, ugly right away. And so I think that people are going to find these stories really compelling, really interesting, and a lot of fun. And I apologize. There's a leaf blower right outside my door. Now he's left, thank goodness.
Yep. Okay. So where can listeners buy or find the book?
Thank you very much, Jackson. The book is available via Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or most any other online website. And I will also hope to have some more book signings for each of my other 4 books. I was able to have book signings in Gainesville at the Alpha Euro Grill, my favorite local restaurant, and the Oak Trails Miniature Golf Course, my all-time favorite putt-putt golf course. As soon as I am able to hopefully set up some book signing dates for those and maybe other venues, I will definitely announce them on Facebook. People are welcome to check me out on Facebook. I'm just listed as Douglas Young on Facebook. And if you check out my Facebook page now, you'll see a picture of me doing this, holding up the new book. So you can't miss me. But I would say that the best way, the surest way to get a copy of my book would be to order it via Amazon or Barnes and Noble or most any other online bookstore, Target, many others.
And have fans shared any reactions and stories that stood out to you?
Oh, yes. I have been so blessed to have so many readers and so many readers who have posted reader reviews, book reviews on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and so many readers who have emailed me or posted on my Facebook page or messaged me on Facebook telling me how much they enjoyed this novel or this or that short story. So I'm really gratified by that. I mean, first, last, and always, first and foremost, as far as my writing goes, particularly fiction writing, I want to entertain. If I'm writing an essay, if it's a political essay about some political issue, some public policy matter, I want to persuade. But regarding fiction, I want to amuse. I want to make people laugh. I want people to feel emotions. The last thing in the world I want to do with my fiction is to in any way preach or to be political. There are way too many artists who do that. And I think when artists do that, they make their fiction, their art, a slave, a servant to their pushing their political ideology. And that causes their art, their literature, their story to suffer. And I don't want to do that at all. So, especially to anybody who has read any of my essays and disagrees with me politically, trust me, there's no politics. There are no politics in this book. It's all, fun stories. And I think that anybody who enjoys reading fiction will really like this new book a lot.
Okay, if you could leave listeners with one message, what would it be?
I think, as many people throughout history have said, but it's probably taken me a long time to realize how valid, how truthful it is. The most important virtue of all is courage. Because if we don't have the courage to pursue our dreams, to become a novelist or a short story writer or whatever we most want to do with our lives, we will never do them. We will never fulfill our dreams. Standing tall for what's right, helping others, being the one person in the room to tell an unpleasant truth, none of those virtues can become a reality without courage. You have to have the strength, the courage to stand up for your convictions, to risk failure, to risk being embarrassed, to risk being shunned or ostracized, to risk losing. And so I would say that courage is the most important thing in life. Yes, we should always have good values. We should be good Christians or good Jews, but without the courage to follow through on those morals, what good are our morals? I mean, yes, we can pray, and prayer is great, and good thoughts are important, but good deeds are way more important. And so whether we're wanting to help people, whether we're wanting to help a good cause, whether we're wanting to pursue our hopes and dreams, we've got to summon the courage to risk failing, falling on our face, embarrassing ourselves. And we learn far more from failure than from success. But as someone said, it may have been President Nixon, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Someone said, failure is never final until you give up. Failure is never fatal unless you give up. And it's okay to not succeed at first, but keep trying. Whatever it is you want to do with your life, whether it's writing, whether it's teaching, being a doctor, a lawyer, a plumber, a carpenter, whatever your hopes and dreams are, go for them. I mean, as much as I want to believe that we'll go to heaven in the next life, that this life is not it, the reality is the only life we know we've got is this life. And it's so short. And the older you get, Jackson, the faster time flies. And so now is the time. Now is the time to summon the courage to pursue your dreams, whatever they are. Don't wait to start writing fiction like I did until you're in your late 50s. Go ahead and start writing now. Don't, if you've got a crush on some cute gal, don't be shy about pursuing her. As the old saying goes, faint heart never won fair maiden. You need to have the courage to ask her out. Don't wait forever. Don't wait too long to go to China or to Europe or Africa or wherever you want to go. And I can tell you, traveling abroad involves a lot of energy. And Cheyenne and I just had a wonderful time in Portugal, but at 64, traveling abroad takes more out of you than it did when I was 54 or 44. So don't wait too late to travel. Summon the courage to seize the moment right now. We never know how much longer we have to live. I mean, the most pivotal deaths in my life were when I lost 2 elementary school friends to cancer in their late 20s. And that forced me to realize that death is not necessarily some distant reality, but death could happen at any moment through cancer or a car wreck, whatever. And so don't put off till tomorrow anything that you can do today. Seize the moment, seize every opportunity to live life to the absolute fullest. We all have so much more talent than we want to acknowledge. And I think that we are denying ourselves and we're denying an audience the benefits of our talents if we don't develop them, if we don't pursue them. And, write and submit your writings for publication. And even if most publishers reject them, if just one publisher accepts your work for publication, hey, you've gotten your work published and you've gotten it out. That's all that counts. F. Scott Fitzgerald, who I think has written the most beautiful prose, most beautiful fiction I've ever read, he got so many rejection notices when he started writing, when he started submitting short stories to various magazines for publication. He got so many rejection notices that he wallpapered his entire writing room with nothing but rejection notices. That's F. Scott Fitzgerald, the man who wrote perhaps the quintessential great American novel, The Great Gatsby. So pursue your dreams, but you've got to summon the courage to go after them. Only you can achieve whatever it is that you really need to achieve to have a fulfilling life. So go for it.
Now, would you come back on the Jackson Harris Show again in the future?
Oh, absolutely. This has been a joy. I'm so grateful to you, Jackson, for inviting me back. And I would be elated, be delighted to come back. Yes, sir.
Well, you have any more questions before we end off the show?
Do I have any questions of you? Let me think. What is it that you have most enjoyed about being a podcaster over these last, I think, 6 years that you've been doing this?
I've been in radio for at least that as much as that time, and I've been doing radio for so long. So that goes into what I do now. The podcasting that goes into what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I can.
Well, you do it very well, and I can tell that you are significantly more polished and confident now at 21 than you were several years ago when you first interviewed me. So kudos, buddy. I'm so impressed with you. I'll tell you, when I was your age, I was so shy. It was inconceivable that I could have gotten on the air like you have since you were 15. So cheers.
Well, that's the end of the Jackson Harris podcast. Thank y'all for joining me, and I will see you all later on.
Bye-bye, everybody. Best wishes all.